When you have a very strong yearning or desire to connect with nature, because you feel like going out to nature is like the only way to actually relax and reset or recharge, rejuvenate your whole nervous system, and it's like a place for you for self-reflection, relaxation, but perhaps you also feel healed when you go out to nature. And what you're really looking for and what you're yearning for is perhaps to dedicate your life to this path of spiritual healing. And that's really what you can sense, because you feel like living in the modern world with all the hyper and super high expectations and conditions we are dealing with, a world that seems to be ruled by people who only want more power for themselves, by disempowering others, and trying to cope with that kind of reality just really seems to feel very off for you. And if you are trying to go along with it, you feel drained, fatigued, frustrated, angry, and perhaps you even struggle with things like anxiety, stress, depression, feeling burned out. And although you know there's a better way for you, perhaps you are a pretty business savvy person. You also feel like you already have been there, you already have done that, and that also gave you perhaps loads of stress and anxiety of constantly trying to chase down the next client and whatnot. And you feel that in this lifetime there's another path ahead for you. So if that is really the case, then perhaps I could congratulate you, because I feel like the only thing that I currently feel drawn to is this path of shamanism. And although I come from a pretty strong marketing, sales, entrepreneurial business background, I also got to a point when I even tried to go along with it. I lost a little bit my interest for chasing the money just for the sake of it. Even when I go into this whole thing of prospecting and networking, and I feel like that's not really who I really am. And sometimes it feels I want to search for something that feels more authentic. And the only place that feels authentic for me is to connect with the natural world, is to connect with nature, is to connect with the elements. So this whole path of shamanism, it's actually really aligning ourselves with the elements and with the spirits of the lands, of nature, of the forest, of water, of the sea, of the hills, the mountains, the trees, the plants, the animals. Because that's the only place that feels kind of like unconditional for us, and that's the place that reflects our true nature, our true authentic self. It's the place that we are longing for, that we are yearning for. That seems to be, it always has been there, but it feels like it has been suppressed by our upbringing, our culture, our conditioning, and the way of modern life. So what I found, and that's really what I've been struggling with, although I follow courses around soul retrieval, connecting with the dragons, connecting with the stars, with the ancestors, ancestral healing, and all these beautiful things. What I struggled with is, of course, is breaking down our personal identity, the personal identity that we seems to have formed and developed, trying to make our way in the 3D world, the world of our society, of our culture, of how we think we should be in order to be socially accepted, and what others can recognize. Okay, you have earned yourself a place of standards and status. So we have that whole personal identity of our ego, that is really what we should be going after. And this whole idea of shamanism, perhaps we could think about an elder a woman or a man dressed up in some tribal clothes and a big nice hat on top of a hat, and doing a rain dance or a fire dance, connecting with the spirits of the lands and whatnot. And we think like, well, I'm not really sure if I want to identify myself with that, although that sounds a little bit woohoo. And although that dressing up thing, that is of course a part of the tradition of any kind of tribe that has practiced shamanism. It's another form of identification, and we have fixated ourselves at forming our identification that is socially accepted. Going in this path of shamanism, we think about we have to develop another kind of identification and let go of the old ego. What I've realized for myself, that has really nothing to do with it. It's all about getting out of our own way and learning to develop and open up the heart and develop ourselves, opening up the spirits, and be a bridge for ourselves with trying to indeed get along with what we experience here in this man-made reality. And of course we can reconnect with our own spiritual century by going out in nature, but that's really where of course we can be the bridge for the spirit world, remembering and reconnecting with our true authentic self, and perhaps find messages and inspirations and insights of what it is that we need right now for ourselves, our own healing journey, of what it is that we need to experience for ourselves. So that's really the whole basics, and of course there are endless practices to evolve further on this path, but perhaps when we try to focus on these first basic elements and recognize that is giving us so much, and we don't have to dress up for that. So one of the most important things to realize is that we must go beyond the logical, analytical minds of thinking and really see what it is that we can do that gets us into another state of being, when we are a little bit more in a trance zone, when we feel we are in the flow or in the zone. Perhaps it is indeed going on for long walks and hikes in nature, because we have the constant changing environments, and we feel that when we are moving through this space-time reality, we could feel is that every piece of land, every kind of area holds a different energy and different spirits, and if we move through that, we could pick things up for ourselves. That could be one form of getting our minds into a different state of being, of a more relaxed, that is much more closer to a dream state, and that's where we can ease down the thoughts, the overthinking, the stresses, the anxiety we can experience in our day-to-day life, of all the things that we think we should be doing. And that's in that zone state, or in that flow state, that's really one when we could receive insights and new inspirations and answers of what it is that we need right now in this very moment for us getting ahead in life, the next steps in our life for our own healing journey, but also in the journey of trying to find our way in our day-to-day life and living. So that could of course be a much more accepted way of practicing this. Of course the next steps could always be seeking for something a little bit more active, like setting up an altar and a ceremony and drumming and rattling and these different kind of practices. But it all starts really with the basics of intentions. Intentions is all that really matters, because you can follow all the rules of how to set up an altar and how to do everything according to the book of what we have learned, or what you can learn in any kind of course. But without the intention, none of that really matters, because once the attention is there, with perhaps no expectation or an expected outcome, but just the intention of seeing like, hey, I'm going out for optimizing the nervous system, optimizing my mind, and to reset and to recharge, rejuvenate, and perhaps I let it be for what has to come to me. I think when you can have that kind of intention, then the unexpected might reveal itself. And that's really the beauty and the magic, and I think that's really what is missing. We feel that is missing in our life is the unexpected and the magic that has yet to be revealed, because we think we must be in control over everything, but we have so little control, yet loads of things are happening, and if we feel like we are battling that illusion that we must have control over everything, we are spinning our wheels, we are burning out our spirits. So learn to accept and embrace that we are this tiny little drop of water that is part of a larger ocean, and sometimes the ocean has to give tiny little bits of trying to remind us who we really are at our core, at our true nature, at our true authentic self. So I think that's the whole path, that's the whole journey, and that's really what I'm kind of like. I'm just lifting up the veil basically of what's ahead. It kind of feels excited because I feel like there's so much that we have to remember of what is already there, but we seem to have forgotten and suppressed and put away because we don't want it, because we want to go ahead with the culture or the religion of capitalism, of everything that we think we must be doing, working 6-7 days a week in order to accumulate more material things, to be a good consumer, to gain status in the form of success. But how more we follow that path, the more we realize how out of balance and harmony we are with our own nature. We have called it progress to evolve into concrete jungles and to build multiple story houses that really disconnect us from the outside elements, because we want to be protected from the cold, the weather and whatnot. But yet, how many of us, we actually sleep with the window closed and we wake up long after the sun has risen, and we feel like we actually should be leaving the window open so the air come in, the wind can come in, and we could even smell the scent of nature. But if we live in these concrete jungles, we close the window because we want to isolate ourselves from the noise that is in the city and from the pollution that is all around us. So we have made that progress, but yet we think we can all agree what it actually is doing to ourselves, what it is that we are doing to ourselves and the land we live on. Like I mentioned in my previous video, we live on this land, like we are on top of it, separated of it, but we are not going along with it. We don't live with the land. And does that mean that we need to grow our own fruits and veggies and go back to a very basic time? Perhaps time will tell. Maybe that might become relevant of where we are heading, because of course there's a whole other story which I briefly touched in my previous video of how we are eating things from nature that are not longer from nature, it's not longer produced from nature, because it has been, of course, artificial modified in order to produce more and more and more. It's food that has been manipulated. So that's another form that we are not in touch with nature, because we are not consuming the things that are from nature. And of course we can go on and on and on, but I think you could realize, like, perhaps some teachings that has been developed over eons from our ancestors, they actually might become more relevant than ever. Like, we have developed a world of technology, but are we really using technology, or is technology using us? We can have technology, we can have a trading system. Of course, that can all be fine, but is it in line with the laws of nature, or does it separate us further from the laws of nature and from our own nature? That's the biggest question that I think we must find an answer or peace with within the next couple of years and decades going ahead. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about these type of topics. Do you feel like we actually should perhaps study, practice knowledge and wisdom that has been developed by our ancestors, that we thought should be wiped out of the land of the earth because we need to conquer that land in order to make progress in terms that are in alliance with the rules of capitalism? Or should we learn and actually fight harder for what these teachings are, these wisdoms are, and how can we build this bridge between the material world around us and with the spirit world? So these are topics that I will be exploring much further, of what it is that can do for us really, for our health and well-being and for our own healing, and to evolve our mind and spirit. So if this is something that you think could be helpful, please let me know. Simply drop a comment below. Also make sure to like this video, share, and subscribe, hit the bell notification if you don't really want to miss out. And yeah, please let me know your thoughts. Just leave a comment below. We very much appreciate it. All right, take care for now. Bye bye.